Hello, welcome to P2P Live. It's Friday, 12:30, which is our regular slot to go live across Australia with a labour market and a jobs market update. So you hopefully are watching us live. There's a range of different platforms that we are live on, or otherwise if you're watching afterwards, thank you for joining us. If you are watching live and you have any questions, please pop them in the comments and I'll try and make sure I get to them as we go along. My name is 𝗂𝗄𝗃𝗃𝗃. I'm the Managing Director of People2People here in New South Wales, and very happy to be taking you through our live today with a very special theme, really, because it is International Women's Day on the 8th of March. So today is International Women's Day, and so we've got a little bit of a spotlight on women today, and particularly going to chat to one of my long-standing colleagues who's going to be able to talk a little bit more about her experience as well. So in terms of the other things that we're going to look through, so as always, we've got some numbers for you. There's some interesting data that's come out this week around job advertisements, so I'll take you through that information. We've got jobs across Australia and New Zealand and the UK that we're looking to fill very quickly. So we'll be able to share those with you if that's relevant for you or someone that you know. As I said, we're going to have a chat to someone who I've worked with for a long, long time, Kirsten Garrett, who's one of the female leaders at People2People, and just get her thoughts and insights around International Women's Day and the themes that surround that. And then, as always, we will give you the results of last week's social media poll, and very keen to hear from you for the next week around what your thoughts are in that area. So we'll get started now with our stat of the week. Okay, so the data that you can see on the screen there is something that was released by Indeed in the last couple of days. So that's really tracking job advertisements month on month. So job advertisements as measured by Indeed in Australia, they did fall in February. So you can see that there is that slight peak, which is January of 2024, which was really a surprising uptick. It increased by 3.4%, but going from January to February, job ads being advertised has decreased by 2.8%. So a bit of a bumpy road there. And if you look at the picture throughout 2023, whilst there's a few undulations, the trend has generally been down, and that is down from really almost an all-time high towards the end of 2022. So looking at the February numbers that came out just recently compared to the same time last year, it's 12.4% down, sort of year on year. So I don't think that would be particularly surprising to anybody. It's generally the sense that we're getting out there that the whole point of the interest rate rises is to try to slow the economy a little bit. So there is not quite as many jobs being advertised, although there is certainly still activity, and by no means there's no work out there. But from that very, very heady high of 2022, it's definitely started to come down a little bit. So that's our stat of the week, and we might go to our next section to talk about some job advertisements. Okay, so we've got a number of roles that the team need to fill. Some of them need to be filled almost yesterday. So I will take you through just a couple of them. The first role you can see on the screen there, it is a temporary position. So that means it is a start almost straight away. Sky from our Sydney team is running this position. It's an administrative role, looking at about $30 to $40 per hour, depending on, I guess, your experience and capability in the position. We're really just looking for some prior administrative and professional experience. So reach out to Sky if you think that might be right for you. The next role that we've got, I think, is all the way over in WA. So this is a business development manager position that Kim, who leads our team in Western Australia, is looking after, really looking for sales or business development experience within air freight forwarding. So it's quite specific for this particular position and this particular organisation. You can see some of the responsibilities on the screen there, but Kim certainly would welcome the opportunity to chat to you if you've got that type of experience. And the last role that I wanted just to describe to you before we've got some videos and other pieces of content is all the way over in the UK. So Anthony from our team in London is looking at this position as Senior External Auditor. Obviously, you need to have that relevant experience and qualifications. And if you are interested in that, please reach out to Anthony. I think for this particular position, there might not be an opportunity for sponsorship. But if you are perhaps in Australia or New Zealand and you're looking at going over to the UK and you bring that auditing type of background, I'm sure Anthony would want to talk to you as well. So what we do have now is from New Zealand, we've actually got a video with an advertisement as well. So we'll just roll that.
If you're a health and safety advisor looking for a bit more variety in your role or perhaps a change of scenery, I'm currently recruiting for a health and safety advisor for one of New Zealand's leading agricultural businesses. So within this role, you'll be looking after 4 different areas within the business, including the fleet management, the pack houses, the fields, and the food manufacturing warehouse. Ideally, I'd be looking for someone with more than 2 years health and safety experience in New Zealand, and then it would be a great bonus if you've got any experience working with heavy machinery as well. So the salary ranges from 80 to 85k. If you'd like to learn a bit more about this role, then just reach out to me and we can have a chat about it.
Well, I'm delighted now to be joined, as I said, by Kirsten Garrett, who you can see on the screen there, who is a long-standing female leader at P2P. So thanks for joining us, Kirsten. Great to have you on P2P Live.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Pleasure.
The theme of this year's International Women's Day is really about inspiring inclusion, so celebrating and promoting that kind of empowerment. So I'm really interested, I guess, to hear sort of some of your experience in terms of that in the workplace and how you might have seen things change around embracing inclusion and equity over the time that you've been in the professional workforce.
Well, thank you, Catherine. Pleasure to be here. I guess first and foremost, the biggest change or progression that I've seen, and I've been in this recruitment industry now for well over 25, in fact, closer to the next decade there, is the fact that equity and inclusion is actually being discussed. It's a topic at the table, and I think this is the first and a very positive move forward. I'd also like to acknowledge that in the biggest change I've seen, or one of the biggest changes I've seen, is bias is not as blatant as it was once upon a time. 10 years ago. It is, however, definitely present, but it is more of an unconscious bias. And I kind of think that makes it harder to address and to call out behaviours related to unconscious bias. And that's where education programs really play into it. I am going to wave the P2P flag just ever so quickly because I did a rough calculation. And here at P2P, I think we're a great example of breaking down the barriers in gender bias. We offer strong training and mentoring programs available to all without exclusion. And we now have approximately 75% of our leadership or management roles across our entire business held by women. And I think that's a great reflection. It's a great platform to go out to the market, particularly because we are in recruitment. That aside, some of the areas that I've seen really develop as uncomfortable, I should say, as they might be to talk about, is women's health. Sometimes a little bit of an icky subject that we are starting to see topics that would never have been discussed in a corporate boardroom being raised around menstrual leave, menopausal leave. And in fact, tomorrow, the Minister for Women is going to release Australia's first ever strategy for gender equality, covering 5 areas of priority, but one of them is women's health. And I think that's a big step forward. Paternity versus maternity leave programs, allowing the other partner, not just the childbearing mother, to have leave to support on the home front. Another the big step forward. And the impact of that is that if women want to, they may be able to return to the workforce earlier than in previous years. And therefore the impact on their career and the ability to earn higher salaries is greater. And I think that's a step forward. So I guess the last thing I'll say on progression is that I'm constantly excited about the number of roles in large corporates, admittedly, and that's the first step, that are devoted to diversity, equity and inclusion. 2, 3, 5 years ago, that phrase, diversity, equity, inclusion, wasn't even on anyone's radar. And now you have directors of, managers of, and I think that's a really step forward. So these are visible progressions on a continuous journey of equity and inclusion in the workplace.
Yeah, indeed. I think one of the comments I was just as you were speaking then that I thought is I know a lot of particularly big corporates who have those resources, they're implementing things around that unconscious bias, particularly in that selection process as well, around sort of AI. And so there's almost a role that technology is starting to play in that as well, which is interesting. So what do you, and, you know, I think we were chatting briefly before, and there could be a list as, you know, almost an infinite list of things that we could talk about, and we have finite time, obviously. But what do you think are some of the ways that individuals and or organisations can inspire inclusion? So really so that the needs and interests and aspirations of this diverse group of women and diverse group of people can be really sponsored and supported.
As you say, there is so many areas that we could address as individuals, as employees, as well as people who are part of the management team. But for me, first and foremost, inspiring inclusion starts with celebrating how far we've come already, recognising perspective and contributions of all. And I believe it's about creating a mood and an environment within the workplace where everyone has a voice. Education, mentorships and awareness programs will create opportunities for women to thrive and develop. And with gender pay gaps being on the radar at the moment, we all know large organisations of 100 plus people have to account for their pay gaps and have to report on these every year. But I'd like to see some analyses recognising and reporting of these pay gaps at team level, business level, for all sizes of companies. Obviously, the data stays in-house, but it will raise an awareness out there. I think addressing any imbalance is about thinking differently and leading by example. And I think that's the broad stroke approach to improving and making progression. And my final comment, because we are conscious of time, is for me personally, it is about supporting women, but it's not to the detriment of men, because a lot of the women who are in the positions they're in today, myself included, their personal and career mentors are men. And I think that is something that we need to acknowledge, but the imbalance of women in leadership roles does need to be addressed.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, there's some great points there. Sorry?
Very sobering comment there at the end.
Oh, well, no, indeed. But as you say, I think a big part of it is also having that celebration of how far we have come. So I think, you know, of course, there's always more that can be done. But I think we're both mothers of daughters who will come through in this next generation. And I just think that their early experience going into the workforce is going to be so different to what mine was and so different to what yours was as well. So Absolutely. I think we're definitely heading in the right direction, but still, yeah, we need to keep it on the radar. Thank you for joining us, Kirsten. Appreciate your time and your insights as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to almost the end today, which is our poll that we ask you every week. Very keen to hear what your thoughts are out in the market. So the question we put to you last week was, would you be willing to accept a salary reduction in exchange for the opportunity to work remotely more often? So would you actually take a step back as long as you've got more remote work. Interestingly, it's about a third of people said, yeah, you know what, I would. So 33%, or almost 34%, said they would be willing to take a salary reduction for that increased flexibility. But by far the majority said, no, thank you. And that's interesting to, as part of the commentary around, is that flexibility in remote work, is it a right, is it an expectation now, or is it seen as a benefit? So thank you for your feedback there. Our question this week that we want to put to you is, to what extent do you feel your workplace is committed to diversity and inclusion? So obviously with this today being International Women's Day, the theme really being around inclusion and equity. So we're really keen to know from you, what extent do you think your workplace is committed to diversity and inclusion? So yeah, please jump online and send us your thoughts and your suggestions. Thank you again for watching. We will be back next week with P2P Live, but it is bye for now.